Probably one of our greatest exports of our Irish immigrant diaspora is our storytellers, our ability to weave a narrative, to capture people with just the mere idea of a start, beginning, middle and end. Hi guys, my name is Simo and I work here at EBOOKS, the Irish Emigration Museum. If you'd like to follow me, I'd like to tell you about the amazing story about some of Ireland's greatest exports, their people. Follow me. This museum was opened in 2016, but the building that it's actually housed in is the remnants of a custom bonded warehouse that was originally built in 1817. This building was one of the first fireproof warehouses and it was originally designed by a Scottish engineer named John Rennie. And we thought this was where they would have stored barrels of whiskey and wine and tobaccos and teas and spices that would have traveled to all the four corners of the globe. So we thought this was a very fitting venue to tell the story of our Irish diaspora and immigrants who would have left this country all them years ago. And we explored this in our museum by answering three simple questions. Where did the Irish go? Why did they emigrate in the first place? And finally, what did they do when they arrived in these amazing new countries? So here we can see some of the many different vessels that many of our Irish immigrants would have left on when they were starting their epic journey. You can see starting from the very beginning with our Curragh ships that would have sailed in 500 AD, bringing Irish missionaries over to England, which would have taken the bones of a couple of weeks. Moving forward, you might see our sail ships, such as an example, the Jeannie Johnson, which would have brought Irish immigrants during the Great Famine aboard this coffin ship, which was known for its high mortality rates. The Jeannie Johnson here was one of our many coffin ships that never lost a life on board. And then we can see we transition from sail ships all the way to our steamships. We have a ship that looks like the Titanic, but actually is its sister ship, the Olympic. This is the only one of the three ships of the White Star Line trio that never sunk on any of its journeys. And as well as traveling by sea, you can travel by air. We have the Lockheed Super Constellation, which was the first transatlantic flight from Dublin to New York in the 1930s. Okay, now that we know how the Irish got into these strange new countries, in our next few galleries, we're going to discover why the Irish would have left. Follow me. So now, here we are arriving in a new world. You can see this gallery looks very much like the passport offices. You have your documents being checked, all the questions being asked, and on our screens here you can actually hear the first-hand accounts of some of our Irish immigrants who would have left, and you get to hear about their hopes and dreams, why they would have left. Did they leave by choice? Were they forced to have left? Such as Anne Carey here. We have an example. She would have left from Belfast in the 1970s during the Troubles in order to escape the atrocities there, and she ended up in Canada with her husband. So when EBOOKS was first opened in 2016, it was one of the world's first fully digital museums, which you use to immerse our visitors in the stories that are told by our Irish immigrants. So here we have an example of a letter written from a brother to another brother from Marin County, California, and he offers them the prospect of milking cows out in California, which was seen as a much more desirable life than life in 1899 in Ireland at the time. Another example of this tech that we can see is showing all the different professions that many of our Irish would have been involved in. So many know of the Irish in America working as firefighters or as policemen, or some of them would have gone to Australia working on the Golden Mile digging for gold. But here's one of my favourite stories. This is the story of a nanny whose name was Margareta Alexandra Eager. She was the nanny for the 4 children to the last Tsar of Russia in St. Petersburg, Russia. So this brings into the idea, the whole propagation of Irish immigration and building of these Irish communities abroad. While Ireland might have its own unique war stories, many of our Irish immigrants who got involved in war efforts abroad have even more fascinating stories, such as the story of Christian Davies here. This was a woman whose husband was press-ganged into the 9 Years' War and the War of Spanish Succession, so in order to find him, she actually disguised herself as a man and took up the name Christopher Welch and got involved in many series of wars and conflicts such as the Battle of Landen. And also, the funny story is, she managed to find her husband, unfortunately in the arms of a Dutch woman. So now that we have an idea why some of the Irish immigrants would have left, we're now going to see what they would have done when they made a life for themselves abroad. So some of you might see some very familiar faces like James Watson, one of the co-founders of the chemical structure of the double helix of DNA, and right beside him, the Irish actor Liam Neeson from County Antrim, who would have made his debut and big break as Qui-Gon Jinn in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You might see US presidents like John F. Kennedy, who would have had family from New Ross, County Wexford, who would have grown up to become the first Catholic president of the United States, which was quite a big deal and quite a big representation for the Irish vote. And then finally, you might be able to see the likes of Peter Rice, who was an engineer and was the head engineer behind the designs of the Sydney Opera House or the Shard of the Louvre in Paris. Oh, and of course, we have one of our 23 US presidents who was of Irish descent, surprisingly, Barack Obama. His great-great-grandfather on his mother's side, Falmouth Carney, he would have hailed from County Offaly in Donegal as a humble shoemaker, and who would have known that he would have had one of his great-great-grandchildren to be leader of the land of the free, home of the brave, huh? And this is one of my favourite galleries, Discovering and Inventing, where we get to learn about our Irish inventors, scientists, engineers and the like. And here we see this lovely little structure here, a collection of fibre optic cables just hanging over you. This is meant to represent the human brain, showing all the neurons firing all these great ideas, these big advancements in technology. And funny enough, these fibre optic cables, these were actually the works of one of our Irish immigrant scientists, John Tyndall, who we feature in the museum. He was one of the first people not only to discover why the sky is blue, one of the second people to have proven the idea of germ theory, but he was the first person to demonstrate that light is able to refract in a tube like these fibre optic cables here. And we also use these fibre optic cables in applications such as high-speed internet. So next time you're clicking all those likes, you can thank John Tyndall for all of that. So now we're going to play a little bit of a game. So here we have the usual suspects. And if you walk along these arrows here, you might be able to read a fact file about some of our infamous or famous people. This person's story was grossly exaggerated by the news press. If you believe that Billy the Kid was guilty, you stand here. If you're having a change of heart and you do feel it might have been Mrs. O'Leary, you can swap over and stand over here. Mrs. O'Leary, it seems she was one of the unfortunate people who was guilty of starting a fire in Chicago that killed 300 people. So, yahoo! Some people believe that it was a cow that she was rearing that kicked over a lantern and spread throughout the whole city and would have burned as a result. However, after being hounded by news, press and reporters and her life was ruined, it actually turned out that a reporter admitted to inventing the story. So, this is one of the first examples of fake news. Now, this tour wouldn't be complete without a visit to the old Irish pub, eh? But the Irish pub, while this might be one of the driest pubs in all of Ireland, this Irish pub is a great setting showing that many of our Irish immigrants, they would have viewed this not just as a watering hole, but this would have been the key spot for many of our Irish immigrants who would have been searching for work. They would have consulted with fellow Irish immigrants already based there, and a lot of them would have received their paychecks behind the bar as well. And of course, as well, there's crack agus ceol, just to really get the setting. So next to our drink, probably one of our greatest exports of our Irish immigrant diaspora is our storytellers, our ability to weave a narrative, to capture people with just the mere idea of a start, beginning, middle and end. And also, you guys can really get stuck into this by seeing our interactive magic book. If you just want to turn the page, you can learn about where our Irish would have gone, what sort of characters would have been surprisingly of Irish descent. You might be able to spot some people who surprisingly might have been like, Pulitzer Prize winners. You might be able to see the likes, James Joyce, William Butler Yeats, or even the likes of Samuel Beckett, who are 3 of our Nobel Prize laureates for literature. And some of our visitors might actually call this the Whispering Library. Let's find out why.
87 that was, year before we, and the old major partial to his drop of spirits.
So what are Irish best known for celebrating? March 17, that is St. Patrick's Day. And here behind us you can see many of our famous monuments around the world that are coloured green in order to pay tribute to the celebration that is celebrated not just in Ireland but all over the world. You can spot examples of the celebration festivities such as the Irish Music Fest in Milwaukee, which is one of the largest celebrations of Irish music in the world. And finally, in our final gallery, you guys get the chance to add your own Irish ancestry to this wall of Irish names. This feature called The Power of a Name will ask you just for your own name, then your family's name, and then you'll get the chance to get a little quick photo op with your Irish ancestry as part of our museum for today, and to keep that connection alive. So guys, thank you very much for coming to EPIC, the Irish Emigration Museum. This is only a drop in the ocean of what we can see about the influence of the Irish around the world. I hope you guys will come and visit us soon. You can check out our website at epicchq.com. Until then, look after yourselves.